Hi, this is John Reed. Welcome to Chapter 6, Why Are We Talking About Content Experiences? We've already covered a lot of the practical hands-on examples in the last chapter, which hopefully inspired you on how to put some of this stuff into action. But this is actually my favorite chapter because it really gets into some of the debates. There's not one right answer to all of these debates, but it really, I think, gets into the heart of how to make a difference with content and what some of the challenges are and why we argue about these things, and I hope this is helpful to you. So this is Chapter 6, Why Are We Talking About Content Experiences? Lately, we've all been hearing a lot about why content alone isn't enough anymore. If you want to have a chance in content marketing, supposedly you now need to provide content experiences. To add to the buzzword soup, there's brand new lingo about AI for context and contextual experiences too. But first, you need to address content experiences and nail down what they mean for B2B. I like the phrase, more on this below, but there is a danger in it too. If you embrace content experiences, you risk believing that your fundamental content job is now to entertain. Go too far down that road, and suddenly it's not enough to answer a question or solve a problem. Now your content must transform the day of the consumer. Sometimes a B2B consumer just couldn't care less about having a content experience. They just want to get the information they need quickly and conveniently. And sometimes all a buyer wants is to avoid a negative experience. What if we watch a compelling corporate video and then, the next few times we're looking for info, the brand's website is down? Or we have a crummy chatbot session? Who cares about an entertaining video that made us laugh when the call center made us cry? So you need to reframe the concept of content marketing and storytelling in B2B. Set aside the marketing part for a bit and focus on the content. And that's where the idea of content experiences starts to make sense. The term content experiences was coined by Randy Frisch, CMO and co-founder of Uberflip. His book, Fuck Content Marketing, he's not mincing words there, pushes readers to move past creating content and into creating content-driven experiences. In an interview with our own Barb Mosher-Zink for Diginomica, Frisch boiled it down. The reality is that writing content and placing content within context to our audience are two very different things. Too often, a brand defines a persona. Then they define a journey to purchase to support that persona via a list of content assets that support that journey. Then they create campaigns around a single piece of content. They create a landing page with a corresponding thank you page that only refers to that one piece of content. Sound familiar? The problem is, they're all dead-end experiences. That approach to content marketing isn't enough anymore. The way Frisch explains it, a content experience doesn't stop at one piece of content. Instead, you should surround the consumer with related content. In short, it's about giving the consumer the resources to push forward. Now, Frisch has a dog in this fight. His company provides a content experience platform that helps marketers serve up relevant, personalized content in a fluid way that avoids these content dead ends. I question whether we should always think in terms of content experiences. However, as brands get bogged down in viral-seeking content or one-off events, Frisch's view rings true. B2B audiences are influenced by their experiences on consumer-grade content platforms. Yet, B2B content creators don't really need to entertain the way Spotify and Netflix do. I'm not backing down on that. Still, I see two ideas of merit here for B2B. One, the user experience around content consumption matters almost as much for B2B firms as for Netflix. Yes, if you have unique content, you might get away with a fairly slow page load or a subpar mobile UI, but in general, your content must be fast, searchable, and easy to consume across devices and mediums such as podcasts, blogs, videos. 2. Netflix and their ilk excel at keeping us engaged with further content, whether it's ease of binge watching or personalized recommendations. B2B firms can learn plenty from that, especially because you aren't likely to earn a subscriber on your first piece of content. You need ways of luring visitors into other content pieces. Prematurely interrupting them and begging them to subscribe with a pop-up is a double-edged sword at best. You need content stickiness. B2B brands have plenty to teach us there. B2C brands have plenty to teach us there. In my opinion, YouTube's recommendation engine is the best in the content universe, but I'm told that TikTok's addictive algorithm is good too. They must be doing something right. Delivering B2B content experiences doesn't mean entertain the heck out of everyone. Here's what I think it does mean. 1, B2B buyers are better engaged when the content asset they are consuming has an appealing path or journey to other relevant content assets. 2, B2B buyers expect frictionless content consumption and a state-of-the-art user experience, just like in B2C. 3, B2B buyers judge every aspect of their experience when considering a deeper relationship with a particular vendor, content included. And if I were doing this book again now, I would add a 4th, which I think was sort of implied in past writings, but that content should also provide interactive components to engage with the author and the brand, and in a live setting to take live jugular Q&A and to essentially build conversations around the content too. Anyhow, creating content experiences changes our web priorities. From Diginomica's inception, we were determined to avoid the junk ads and autoplay videos that are the scourge of most tech media sites. Likewise, brand websites should be about what the customer needs, connecting them to the information to make better decisions. I don't believe anyone will ever say, I just had a great content experience. But there is certainly an art to giving B2B audiences what they want in that moment. First says Uberflip tries to show visitors content they care about, so a podcast, blog, or video could be part of the same personalized stream. If you can tie the free and sign-up content together in an intuitive way, without abusing the visitor with annoying interruption pop-ups, that's skillful design. If making sure your content is frictionless is what we mean by a content experience, then maybe I can get behind that particular buzzword after all. Surprised. But contextual experiences are another matter entirely, as we will explore next. Chapter 7, The Great Contextual Experience Debate. Does AI have the answer? Get your buzzword bingo cards out again. Just when you get a handle on content experiences, there's a new term to consider: contextual experiences. Should you care? I'm not a fan, but debate on context brings our themes to a head. I first learned about it from Matthew Sweezy's provocative Electronics Propaganda Society podcast series, which I recommend to this day. It's about a 9-part series, I think. You can check it out. Sweezy, formerly the Senior Director of Market Strategy at Salesforce, went on to write an important book on the topic, The Context Marketing Revolution. Later, he would graciously join My Hits Misses video show for a vigorous debate. Sweezy has now left Salesforce, but during our chat, he was still there. His core argument: in the era of infinite media, marketing must change. But how exactly? I won't go down the entire rabbit hole here, so listen to the interview if you want the full account. But in it, we end up with the notion of real-time context and how, in this algorithmic, socially networked world, brands must figure out how to be relevant to our individual context, something that most are very bad at doing. One thing I worry about with context: it always seems to morph into some expensive new toy that marketers supposedly have to buy. As in this definition of contextual experiences by the digital solutions agency Universal Mind, creating a contextual experience is the ability to serve up the right content at the right time. Pretty straightforward, right? Only a fool would disagree with that goal. But then we see the words, iBeacons are a key piece of this contextual puzzle, as they allow the ability to serve up proximity content. Whoa, it didn't take long to get to the sales pitch, did it? Obviously, if we break down an individual's real-time context, location's a big factor. But as with many aspects of real-time context, the privacy red flags are flying. Low-Tone's definition has a similar problem. Contextual experiences is a tailored, adaptive, and sometimes predictive customer experience that combines and extends existing segmentation and personalization techniques within the moment details. The main purpose of contextualized experiences can be simplified as maximizing relevance to the user. Putting aside that buzzword soup, again, and there was a lot of them there, that's a pretty good explanation of why a person's context matters to marketers. But you can picture all the vendors lining up with high-priced AI and predictive tools, can't you? Sweezy doesn't do this, however. I've never seen him pitch tools. He wants marketing to change via big ideas, not sales pitches. Where content experiences reimagine how users consume content, I don't see a similar use for attaching context to experience. For example, when I want to return an item to Amazon, I'm not looking for some kind of quote-unquote experience. I just want the simplest, smoothest transaction. So in that instance, a quick return is my context. The point is, lack of friction is not an experience, though it's often a goal of brand interactions. Context is a marketing problem. Predicting context is inaccurate. No tool can accurately assess my changing context, except maybe Alexa, and only when I'm home, and Alexa's pretty dumb even at home. Predicting context can alienate buyers. Guessing at context can result in tone-deaf approaches. It's just spray and pray again. In B2C, you can maybe get away with it, but in B2B, have fun annoying that budget holder. Predicting context is expensive. Predicting context is also invasive. It brings a host of privacy-related concerns. When someone opts into your company in B2B, they have no intent of giving you the level of permission to enter their lives that, say, Apple and Google have on your phone. So is delivering the right information to the right person at the right time the wrong goal? Not necessarily. But as I see it, the B2B relationship is about deepening trust over time based on perceived value delivered from content, products, or services. You don't need to know your buyers every moment to succeed in B2B, but you do need their trust. Everyone's context changes from moment to moment. No tool on earth can handle that. In my debate with Swayze, here's how I explain the problem of obsessing about context. An hour ago, I was thinking about my next article, but then we were having a comment login issue. So now I'm distracted by that. And then maybe I'm looking up Google Help documentation, but then I get a text from my mother and she's going to get a vaccine. My immediate context is changing all the time. If brands take this message the wrong way, they're going to overspend on AI solutions. Given how quickly people's context change moment to moment, I don't think, especially in B2B, that guessing context with AI is the way to go, because ultimately I'm going to come back to the things I care about. That's the essence. People come back to the things they care about, but B2B marketers still have a job to earn that content interest and make it easier with content experiences and opt-in subscriptions in any cadence the user wants. It is a fantasy that AI knows exactly when to send the content and what to send. As someone who's given AI-based email delivery a shot, I can assure you that it is not the case. AI-based content triggers certainly have their place, but so does allowing users to dictate their own preferences. Why don't websites use bots to ask us about the topics we want to hear about, and then configure our content priorities and our delivery timing based on that, instead of trying to overqualify all of us as sales prospects? Yes, you can try to intelligently send out the most likely content to a prospect, and I put intelligent in quotes there. In fact, I like AI for content recommendation and distribution far more than for content creation, though I can see the case for using generative AI to create semi-personal email text that a sales team can fine-tune. But how AI can support marketers in content production distribution is well covered elsewhere. There is plenty to learn from debating real-time context and from kicking the tires of AI marketing tools. My objection is not to any of that. It's about seeing contextual experiences as the next B2B marketing framework. So, what's my alternative, you might ask? Well, you know it by now, opt-in communities. You've digested the AI for context pitch, so here's my alternative. You have someone engaging with the content on your website. They might not come back for a long time, even if they're enjoying the content. People get distracted, they no longer bookmark sites. What you really want is for them to earn their way back to their community or vice versa by sharing things of value with them. It could be content, it could be tools, even free tools. But you want to draw them into your community. And you want to go through a value exchange process, earning more and more data from them. They might subscribe to weekly newsletters or to a podcast. You know that they're probably not going to buy something right away. In fact, they might never buy from you, but they may be someone who influences purchasing decisions, someone that used to be hostile to your brand. To my mind, this mindset removes the necessity to stress out over what is John Reed doing right now, because what I'm doing right now doesn't matter. All that matters is I'm subscribed to your community, I've bought in, and I'm giving you permission to contact me in the future. So why worry about what I'm doing at this moment? Why spend money on AI try to decipher that moment? You don't need to do that, as you've already earned my loyalty. And by the way, as I've pointed out before, all that opt-in community data, once you generate it, is a fertile ground for working on AI in terms of further honing preferences, recommendations, and distribution. I believe my alternative lines up better with how B2B purchases work. Alas, I have no shiny news toys to sell you, just an approach I've staked my career on. Obviously, there is still a place for the real-time sales moment. For example, I had a former client that had precision tools that told them when their prospect was still at work and when they were not. They would get a ping, such as the prospect is still at their office desk in the evening with potentially more time to talk. But here's the catch. How do you avoid the creepy factor? When they called, they had to be careful to make it random, not calculated. That's one issue with context. It gets invasive fast, and when you try to scale it, you can get into some trouble there. It's got to be very well designed. So real-time context has its place. Example, what content do you serve up to web visitors? But because large B2B purchases are never impulse decisions, nothing in the real-time moment drives the sales process all the way through. Context is a valuable foil, but I question its utility as a 24/7 solution. However, Sweezy did have a terrific rebuttal to this. I got to give it to him. One that points to a middle ground. He believes brands struggle to get into a person's real-time moments themselves. You can't produce enough hyper-personal content for all of those situations. So what's a brand to do? Influence in real time instead via community. As Sweezy told me, and keep in mind he was working at Salesforce at this time, when I talk about infinite media, someone says, well, how do I create enough content in the future? And my answer is you don't. You work with the marketplace to create that content for you. And it doesn't have to be what we think of as traditional content. It could be all kinds of things. It could be communities. It could be ratings and reviews. It could be goodwill. One of the phenomenal things that happens out of the Trailhead community is just watch how many people post when they get new badges on social channels and how many other people in their personal lives and networks are all congratulating them on that. We're not a part of that, but we facilitated that conversation. Everyone else has taken that conversation forward and talking about us because of them. So this scenario is not about guessing or predicting the real-time moment, as Sweezy points out, but the brand still played a role, he adds. So that's the context of how we play in that moment. I'm not listening to what that moment is. I help facilitate that moment to happen. So that's our middle ground then, a byproduct of building an active opt-in community. Your community members are now equipped to influence their network's real-time context when it's appropriate and when help is actually needed. And yes, there is a convergence between B2B and B2C purchasing I've alluded to that blurs the lines. Sweezy correctly asserts that the dynamic of risk, how big the purchase is, may be more important than B2B versus B2C. Obviously, low-level B2B software purchases can happen on credit cards, for example. Still, I think there are still plenty of purchasing dynamics that are unique to B2B, enough to write this D-book, in fact. So now that I've made my case, let's close this topic with another note of caution from Sweezy. If marketers stick with business as usual, they'll stumble when it comes to context, he says. The word context isn't how do you take what you're currently doing and make it contextual. It's how do you understand that in the new world in which we operate in, what breaks through is what's in the context of that moment, and getting in the context of that moment is something totally different because those moments are created by other people. We're having to learn how to become a part of those moments rather than where we traditionally were. We were really great at spending a lot of money and writing catchy taglines. But in this new world, it's past one-to-one. It's not one brand message to one person at one time. It's how do I get one person to deliver the message to another person on my behalf. And at that, Sweezy rests his case, and we have one more concluding chapter left.